Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and today we're going back in time a wee bit to a suburb of Washington, D.C., which is called Bethesda, quite an upscale suburb. And we're going to one of the most brutal crimes the police have ever seen that took place at the Lululemon athletic store. All right. So anyway, before I get going, I want to welcome everybody who is here in the chat room. I'm glad you're here today. I think I said hello to pretty much everyone. Bluebell just came in and Elena just came in, so a couple more. Glad you are here. And I want to also say to people, if you would like to be in the chat room, please do. Check the link below. Join Patreon, $5 a month. And you can come to 8 live shows a month. There are 4 hangouts, which are during the week, where anybody can send me any requests, anything about the news, and I just have a 2-hour get-together where I discuss all kinds of different things. And on the weekends, I do the case. These are all patron-only lives, and that keeps this much more of a pleasant place to be during the show. It makes it a little easier on me, but don't worry. If you don't want to join and come to the lives, you can always just become a subscriber, and all of my videos are public. So once the live is finished, it goes public, so you can see everything. But do subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, check my playlist for anything you're interested in, and also go to the search engine at YouTube and put in Profiler Pat Brown in any case you're interested in. See if I've already done it. All right, if I haven't already done it, you can send me an email or message me. And but if you're a patron, you might get first come, first serve on cases that I'm going to do. You can also support the channel by buying one of my books below or clicking on the little $sign, and that is my speech. Okay, let's get to this really interesting case, which I was around for in Washington, D.C. at the time, so it's kind of meaningful to me. And I was approached by the news media because I was doing a lot of news media at the time, and I did speak on this case. So, sorry, trying to get my voice back here. Okay, so what about this case? This is not a whodunit. She done did it. There's no question about who committed the crime at this point in time. She's been convicted. Okay, she's in prison for life. But what's so interesting about this crime is how unusual it was, how people thought of it when it first happened, what the police thought, what the police investigation discovered, and why did she do what she did, which was so absolutely bizarre. Okay, so I'm going to discuss all of these things, and I'm going to discuss her psychology and her motive for this, which I think is a little bit different than many people think. So anyway, let me go to Wikipedia for the short version of this. Wait, before I do that, I do want to say where I got my information from outside of Wikipedia. That is not where I get my information from. That is what I use sometimes during the show in order to make it just easy information, because I'm not telling the whole entire story. So just enough to be able to then explain further. Okay, so what did I get my information from? Where? Snapped, which is not one of my favorite shows on Oxygen. They do all these things about how somebody snapped and committed this horrific crime. And so this one came under that. And you cannot find this at Oxygen, and you can't find it on Amazon Prime. For some reason, it doesn't exist. However, somebody put it up on YouTube, so I don't know if it was legal or not, but there it is. And it is the full show, and I have to say it's very well done. So, sometimes I have a bad attitude about certain things, but hey, when I see somebody did something good, or even if I don't like the producers or I don't like the channel, I go, wow, that was really well done. So I like this one. Really worth watching. It's 45 minutes, and it goes through the whole case. And it has one of the journalists, top journalists, by the way, I read his book, the yoga store murder by Dan Morse. He is in that documentary, and he wrote an excellent book. And I have a lot of information from that book, which is not in the documentary. And I'm going to go through some of that with you to show you how things really were, which were kind of, I think, were left out of the documentary. And also, if you just want a good laugh, Dr. Grande did his usual under 50-minute thing called the Yoga Pants of Death. And I wish he had done some more psychology, which he didn't, because that is his field, but he didn't. But if you just want a really quick go over and some really funny humor, I have to admit, made me laugh. So you can always check out Dr. Grande's thing. All right, now let me read you the blurb so you know what this is about. The Lululemon murder occurred on March 11th, 2011. At the Lululemon Athletica store located in the Washington, D.C. suburb of Bethesda, Maryland, when Brittany Norwood, a store employee, murdered her coworker, Jana Troxell Murray. The case received widespread media coverage and was commonly referred to as the Lululemon murder. In January of 2012, Norwood was sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. And later on, I'll get to how the defense tried to get her out of first-degree murder and tried to convince the jury it was a second-degree murder case. It was not premeditated. And I'll tell you whether I agree with that or not. All right, so let me go to the day that it happened, and then I'll come into where I came in on this whole story as a profiler doing media work. On March 12th, 2011, a manager arrived in the morning to find the door unlocked, merchandise strewn across the floor, and mannequins in disarray. She could hear someone moaning near the back of the store. Frightened, she asked a man outside to help her search the store. He found Jana Murray lying in a back hallway, face down in a pool of blood with a ligature around her neck. Brittany Norwood was found in the bathroom, apparently semi-conscious, with zip ties binding her wrists and ankles and blood on her face. Bloody footprints were tracked through the store. Norwood, when they found her, she was semi-conscious, supposedly, and she was then taken to the ambulance where she then regained consciousness. Norwood told police that she and Murray had closed the store the previous evening. That is true. And she realized that she had forgotten her wallet and called Murray to let her back into the store. And so she was walking to the Metro. She was was in her car, and she said, "Hey, I can't find my wallet. I can't get on the Metro." She was called back to so she said, "Fine, and I'll meet you back at the store." So she did. And then they arrived. She parked in front of the store. They met at the front. Alarm records show the door was opened, unlocked, at 10:05 p.m. So it was locked when they left the store at 9, and then 9:45 is when they left the store. So that was when the alarm was put on. It came back at 10:05, took the alarm off to go back into the store. Then, according to Norwood, 2 men wearing dark clothing and ski masks entered the store and attacked them and sexually assaulted them. Okay, that's her story. And what the police saw, there was some evidence to support her story. It's not like it was completely seeming to be crazy. There's a video of 2 men dressed in black behind the store around, I think it was around 11 o'clock at night. These 2 men dressed in black were on video. All the money was gone from the safes. Somebody had opened up the safes and took all the money out. The money was not in the store. There were bloody footprints, and this is I think it was size 14 male footprint in the store. So it seemed like this story might be true. I mean, you've got one woman who's dead, and the other one seems to have been brutalized and tied up, and this kind of evidence. Hey, wouldn't you think that 2 guys came into the store and attacked these women? Okay. Well, what happened was the media immediately jumped on this, as what a scary story, what a horrifying thing, these poor 2 women, and this one woman who survived it all, she's alive, and she's, at least helped the police, with some information about what happened, right? So I was contacted by the media, and this is one of the stories I did. This happens to be local media. I'm not linking the actual video because, quite frankly, it was a terrible interview. I mean, it was terrible. And I'm not sure why. I don't know whether it was because I was outside and I couldn't hear properly, or I was rushed. There was technical problems. They couldn't hear me and they had to start the interview over in the middle. Or I just sucked. I don't know. But one thing they had asked me was whether I thought that the place was targeted. And I said, well, I don't understand how it was targeted, because if you've got two guys who want to rob the place and want to rob it when there's people there, they would have done it at closing. After the women have closed the place and gone away and now the place is dark, how would the guys even know that the women are coming back? I mean, that makes no sense. Were they just accidentally outside planning to rob something when the women return? So I said, well, it had to be extremely random. And when I said extremely random, I'm saying that because there's no real, it didn't make sense to me. And then I said, or it has to be someone on the inside, meaning Brittany. There was another show I did, and I remember this because during that interview, all I said was it might have been somebody on the inside, maybe, telling somebody we're going to be coming there at a certain time. I really didn't go for that one, but I felt it had to be an inside job. And when I meant inside, I meant her. On another show, I pretty much said, I think the police are really going to have to check her story. And I remember the horrified look on somebody's face, the host's face or whatever. And they, how could you say such a thing? They were like horrified that I would even have the audacity to say that when this poor woman had been brutalized. And I think they might have even said that. Well, Pat, she was brutalized. And I'm like, well, not so much as her. She was stabbed. She had 300 wounds on her body, 300 plus wounds on her body. Her, not so much. And she's alive. But it wasn't one of the things you're supposed to say when you're doing media work, when you're giving your profile of the crime. And most people probably wouldn't have done it, but y'all know me. I just say what I think. And it was very, very risky. And later on, somebody wrote this. They said, they're talking about whether I can profile or not. And they're saying this, I demonstrated this when Pat Brown, in profiling a preliminary assessment of the Lululemon yoga store killing, opined that the victim's coworker was the likely perpetrator of the crime. It was a bold assertion, but one which Brown made with a level of certainty that reflected her years of experience and expertise. It also turned out that she was 100% right, as Brittany Norwood, who was convicted of murdering Jana Murray, was just yesterday sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So I don't know where the video is where I actually said she was the likely perpetrator of the crime, but I remember saying it and having this, kind of gasp from the people who were interviewing me. They were like shocked that I would say that. But I'm going to explain now why I came to that conclusion right away. I'm just checking on some of your comments here. Okay, I'll get to that. Weren't they supposed to be working and closing the store together? They closed the store together. But this is where people, I think, get confused over what happened after that. All right. Or even before that. Okay, let me explain right now what I think. The reason I said what I did at the time. Why did I not believe the story? One, because I didn't understand why these two guys dressed in black would suddenly show up at that location when they were already closed. Now, if they were burglarizing the place, it made sense. But there was no evidence they were burglarizing anything. And they seemed to come in there and supposedly sexually assault the women. So it would have to be that incredibly random. It just didn't sit right with me. And this is before I knew much of anything, the idea that they would do what they did to her and do so little to her, that doesn't make sense to me. Because if you're going to brutally kill one, you're going to make sure she's dead. And she didn't have any serious injuries at all. She had a little cut on her forehead, and she had some little light cuts on her body. What? And she's what? She's bashed and stabbed and, massively tortured. What the heck? I mean, why would, you got two guys. So theoretically, one guy's doing everything horrifying to her, but not so much to her. Doesn't make sense. And they spent so much time in the store, theoretically, doing all of these things. It just, none of it sat right with me. It just didn't make sense. So I said, look, they're going to have to interview her and find out what she's actually saying makes any sense. And also then they're going to have to look at all the evidence and determine whether the evidence matches her story or not. And none of the evidence matched her story. So that's the interesting thing about it all, is that in the long run, the police, they did one super job, I want to say, by the way. It's these guys. These are the guys with guys on the case, and they were really amazing, really amazing. So I give great credit to them. They did a fabulous job. Did a lot of crime scene reenactments, which I totally approve of. Did very, very logical. They also, from early on, thought that she was not telling the truth. They thought she was involved in one way or the other, but they did not say anything publicly because they didn't want to get in terrible trouble for blaming this poor victim, before they absolutely had proof. So they weren't going to go there, and I can't blame them. I went there just because I was being interviewed, and I just called it like I saw it. So what happened is, once she got to the hospital and they checked her out, and she was pretty much okay, then other things started to be interesting, things that made very little sense to them. One was that all the weapons that were used to hurt and eventually kill. And by the way, somebody pointed out she was alive through almost over 300 of whatever happened to her. She was alive through that. She was only killed at the very end. And that's when she died. And it was just horrific. She had 331 wounds. 331. Used from 5 different weapons, including a knife and a hammer. And there were all these weapons that were taken. They found a toolbox next to her, and the killer grabbed up different weapons from this box, and also this knife-looking thing that was hanging on a wall, I guess. I'm not sure why it was even there at a yoga shop. Maybe it was a useful tool, but kind of creepy. Anyway, so all of these were used on her. She was savagely attacked and beaten and stabbed, all kinds of horrible things. And only that knife you see that finally hit her in the neck was the one that killed her. So she was alive through all of that. She got a scratch. That's real questionable. All right. Turns out, let's look at some other things that turned out. Remember the guys in black. Well, the guys in black, turns out they did find out who those guys were. They were a couple of restaurant workers. Had nothing to do with the case. The money was gone. That makes it look like a robbery. And where is the money, you ask? Well, if this was an inside crime and Brittany went off on Jana and was angry with her, what happened to the money? Money is not in the store. And that's true. What about the footprint? Oh my God, there's a size 14 footprint in there. Well, there was. But what they found eventually was that this footprint matched a shoe that was actually in the store, a shoe that had been washed. There were some shoes that were kept in the store. They were on a shelf in the store. And what they did with these shoes was that they let people put them on when they were trying on clothing. So they had, for the height of, when you have shoes on, what is it going to be like when you have tennis shoes on? So they found the shoe that made this print in the store, and it had been washed off, but there was still a little bit of blood on it. And they found her footprint with her shoe. But the interesting thing was they only found one male footprint. They never found the other guy's footprint. There was her footprint, Brittany's footprints, and this one killer. Where's the other killer? Where's his footprints? There's blood every place, And on top of that, this shoe went to the door, but it never left the store. So the police were like, "Oh, did he just take his shoes off and wander away? What's going on here?" And it turns out that, of course, the shoe never left the store, because what she did was put her feet in the shoe and walk around and make footprints with it. that was her way of making it look like there was a male in the store. She should have, I guess she didn't have a second set of shoe prints to work with. So she was trying to cover up after the fact. So the police noted this. So they're like, okay, got two guys that weren't involved. We've got tools from the store being used, not something they brought with them. We've got overkill on one girl and almost no kill on the other girl. We've got shoe prints that were made within the store by a shoe that was in the store. So now they're pretty sure she did it. And then but they like, how do you prove this stuff? So they had this one other problem. So Jana supposedly drove back to the store after Brittany called her and said, hey, I can't get back in this. I need to get my wallet. I'd left at the store. Can you help me out here? And she said, Jana came back, drove her car back. Where's Jana's car? It was in front of the store. Where'd it go? Well, they found the car a few blocks away. Now, how do you explain that? And so if you watch some of the video that's in the documentary, it's pretty hysterical, because what they did was when they found the car, is they found some blood in the car and they tested it and it came back as Brittany's. So they had her, they were doing the interview with her, and they're asking her, what kind of car does she drive? And she's like, I'm not sure. I only saw it like once. But obviously she had to see it more than once because she was inside the car that night. But that's what they knew. So then when they confronted her with that, and as a matter of fact, her own brother kind of ratted her out and said, hey, you got to talk to her because I think she's saying something funny about that car. So they asked her about, the car was clearly moved by you because your blood's in there from the front of the car to this other location. And then she comes up with this story. She says, well, they told me I had to move the car for reasons completely unknown. Of like, the police are going to come in here because her car is outside. It's going to, like a bunch of guys who have just committed mind you, they've already brutalized, supposedly, Jana. These two guys have already done the job on Jana. They've already done stuff to her. And now, after they've got the money in their pockets, they want her to move a car. Why? Wouldn't they just kill her and run away? Maybe even take the car themselves so they could drive it halfway across the city and disappear? But no, her story is so bad, so terrible, that the police are about you got to be kidding. This is your story. So she says they told her she had to move the car, and that if she stopped anybody and told anybody or didn't come back, they knew where she lived and they would come and get her. And she claimed they knew where she lived because they found her wallet and had identification. So they were going to come after her if she didn't come back. And they were going to come after her if she ran away. She ran away, if she told anybody. So she would, knowing that they've just brutally killed her friend, she's going to think that's a wise idea to go back in and see what they can do to her, rather than take her chances someplace else. So she claims she's moving the vehicle. And they also say they're watching her. Now, from the store to where the car was found, it's crossing a fairly main drag. I'm pretty sure they weren't watching her unless they were walking behind the car. So that's so ridiculous right there. So she supposedly takes the car and then goes and hides the car someplace. And she even sees a police officer, but she's too scared to tell the police officer, hey, there's two killers in the store. Now, mind you, if it's her friend isn't totally dead yet, maybe she'd want the police to go in and save her friend. Maybe she wants the police to go catch the two guys. But no, she would rather park the car and say, okay, I'll do what they say, and then go back to the store and get murdered. What an absolutely stupid story. But what happens with people who commit crimes is that they're not necessarily good at committing crimes. So she didn't know how to cover up the crime she had committed. So she had brutally killed her workmate. There's no question about that. Why I'm going to get into in a bit, but clearly she brutally killed her. for whatever reasons. Now, mind you, next door in the Apple store, the manager actually heard two women's voices. Oh, no, help me, God, help me. Another one's, why don't you talk to me? And she told the security guards, hey, something weird is going on here, thudding, and it seems like something's going on bad. And the security guard goes, oh, women in drama. And she didn't call the police. And later on, when she found out when the woman was murdered, she felt pretty crappy about that. And a lot of people spend more of their time about talking about this crime, about the Apple store employees, than about Brittany. It's like, what a horrible thing that woman was and all the employees of the store. And did they do the right thing? No. Do I sort of understand it? Sort of. Why? Because a lot of times when you hear something, you don't know exactly what you heard. You think you heard it, then you think you didn't hear it. You question yourself because now it's not happening. And it makes you question whether you should call the police and look like an idiot or waste their time. And a lot of people, they get confused and don't call. They should have, but they didn't. But, whether they could have saved Jana or not, I don't know. But I'm going to put Apple people aside. This is not what this show is about. But obviously something horrific went down where Brittany killed Jana, okay, in a brutal, brutal way. And then she had this problem. And the problem was she was the only one in the store with her. So either she's going to be looked at as the killer, or she's going to have to just confess, or she's going to have to make it look like somebody else did it. And that's what she spent the next hours doing. And the reason I believe her car was moved was two. One was because she didn't want anybody to think that the car was outside there. And maybe she thought that people would recognize Jana's car. She thought if she could move Jana's car, nobody would know anything was going on there. Although I don't know that anybody would have paid attention to Jana's car, even if it wasn't parked legally because they were only going in and out real quick. But even if it was towed, does it really matter? But I think the second reason is why she moved the car. And that was because she took the money from the safes. And she had to get rid of the money in the safes. Because if it was a robbery, well, the robbers would have taken the money with them. So she had to remove the money from the location. Where she put the money, I don't know. She could have done a number of things. She could have hid the money someplace and someday gone back and gotten it. She could have chucked that money on the ground knowing somebody will take it. I have no idea what happened to the money. But that, I think, was more of the important reason why the car was moved, is because she had to get the money out of there. Once she did that, she thought, okay, I've got to stage the rest of the robbery. And so she did the footprint thing and made it trash the place and did all those things. And then the question came down to, what about making herself look like a victim? Well, she could only do so much to herself. And we said she didn't do a very good job of doing much to herself, mind you. It was pretty pitiful. She ended up lying on the floor, just laying there like this, and had the ties around her, which you can do like that. So, it just doesn't show very well that somebody else did it to you, especially if you have, I think she's got her hands above her head. So in other words, she did this. It's not like her hands are behind her back. She could do it to herself. And that's what the police noticed, that clearly didn't require a second person. What happened to Jana required another person. Jana could not have done what happened to her. She couldn't have done that to herself. Everything that was wrong with her, she could do to herself. The very light, little light cuts on her abdomen, big deal. She could just go, not really hurting herself. And this thing on her head, either she gashed it herself, or maybe in the fight with Jana, she gashed, got her head gashed. But she also could have wiped it off. And then later on, the blood wasn't running all over the place. It was just like right there. It didn't look like a lot of movement was happening. She had one cut on her hand, which is a kind of cut sometimes you get when you're doing a knifing thing and the knife slips. That was the one thing they thought looked like it could have been somebody else did that to her, but it also could have been just the knife slipped. So nothing about her looked like she couldn't have done it to herself. I saw another interesting thing. I don't know that anybody's ever commented on this, but as a female, I definitely paid attention to this. She was found in the bathroom. Now, I want to ask you folks here, why isn't she in the middle of the floor? Why isn't she in a back storeroom? Why is she in the bathroom? Does anybody have a comment on that? Let's profile here. Yeah, she had a bra on, I think. Yeah, and a top. She was. Oh, yes. and Lenova says, "Oh, I know." Has to be. Now, yes. Here's the thing: if you're going to lay, I don't know when this all. No, this all happened around 10 o'clock at night. And by the way, the guys that were seen in the alley were 11 o'clock. I think that's when she was moving the car. She might have seen the guys leaving the restaurant. Thought, oh, look at these two guys dressed in black. And that's where her idea for the two men dressed in black came from. And just happened to be there on a video. So, hey, that was useful for her, but it wasn't that. But she was in the bathroom so let's say 11, she moves the car. She comes back. She's messing up the place. Now it's 12 or 1 o'clock. The store opens at what? 9 o'clock in the morning? She got 8 hours. 8 hours she's got to get through. So if I were her, what would I do? I'd put myself far away so I could hear people coming in, first of all. I'd have the ties right near me. And if I'm going to sit around for some maybe 8 to 9 hours, I want to be in the bathroom where I can go pee. Because if I'm any place, if I tie myself up, how am I going to pee if I have to pee? I mean, you can pee on yourself, which would be smart, but a lot of times you don't want to do that. So you're in the bathroom, you can jump on the toilet and pee, and then you can go jump back on the floor again. So my belief is she's in the bathroom so she can pee. So the blood was everywhere. I don't think that made any difference. So she could see because of I don't know about the mirrors. I don't think she could have looked in the mirror and gone like this. Yeah, that's true. But she could have also left the bathroom. I think she stayed there because she wanted to make sure she had a place to go to the bathroom during the next 8 to 9 hours. And that struck me right away that she was in the bathroom. So, Sandra Melger. Yes, I did the video on Sandra Melger. Yes. Some of the things Sandra Melger set up, in my opinion, had a similarity to that. You're correct. No, I don't think so. I mean, eventually when they find her, she was supposedly she was not conscious or semi-conscious when they found her. She was pretending to be, so that she didn't answer questions till after she got to the hospital. So, yeah. The pee thing is an ingenious take. When criminals do things, they do things for a logical reason. Always remember logic. And a lot of people say, well, that was so illogical what she did. No, everything she did was logical at the moment for a reason. At least she thought it was logical. If you don't think it's logical, it has nothing to do with another person thinks it's logical. So that's why you have to look at what would they be thinking at that point in time. What would occur to them is something to be done. For her, like moving the car made sense to her. Maybe getting rid of the money made sense to her. She had reasons for doing things. She could have, she did. The money was gone from the safe, so she wanted to make it look like a robbery. And yeah, hard to make it look like a robbery. The money's still there. So she was going through a little logical thing there, and of course she's under massive stress at the time. Also, and she's just tortured her workmate to death. And she knows, hey, if I don't fake this well enough, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. Well, that's true. She didn't fake it well enough. She botched it. Because one thing that people who never have committed a crime like this don't understand is how to commit a crime like this, how to fake it. And she did pretty good. I will say that. She did pretty good considering. I mean, they weren't absolutely sure for quite a long time. I mean, they kept going through all kinds of tests. They tested the footprints. They did all kinds of crime scene reenactments to try to see whether it could have happened the way she said. And they couldn't make it work. And that's why more and more they began to believe that she was lying. So, yeah, fake it till you make it. Well, she didn't make it. She botched it. Interesting. Oh, bless her heart. She tried. Yeah, she did. She did. She tried. She might have done better if she had claimed that she had been made unconscious early on, but she failed to do that. And so, therefore, she had to explain a lot of stuff. And some of the things she tried to explain away. For example, she claimed that she was sexually assaulted, and that was because she had like a rip in her pants. She claimed that the guy sexually assaulted her, and that the reason that he didn't kill her was because she was much more fun than the other girl. Um, and of course, the other girl, there's also a rip in her clothing. So again, it was supposed to be sexual assault, but she did a really crappy staging of sexual assault. So there was no proof of sexual assault to either women. So that was a lie that got her caught up. That's a good point. Psychopaths suffer from overconfidence. Fortunately, that got her caught. Now you're calling her a psychopath, and I haven't even gotten to calling her a psychopath yet. yet. Okay, so you're trying to say this. She could say that she didn't hear or see what happened to her employee since she was in a different room. I don't know if it's convenient for her not to have not said what happened. The place was, let me show you a picture. I do have a picture of the place here. So theoretically, yes, she could have, it's a long story. She could have said she was put into a closet. She could have gagged herself. Well, the problem is getting your hands behind your back. I'm making it look like you were actually tied up, as opposed to you could do it yourself with your hands in front, and then you could take your gag off. But she could pretend she was hit over the head and therefore was unconscious for a long time. That was the Sandra Melger thing. She claimed that she had a seizure and was out for hours upon end, and didn't know what had happened to her husband in the other room. So she could have gone the Sandra Melger route. Yes, maybe it would have worked. Didn't work for Sandra Melger either. So staging is difficult. And the fancier you get, the more you screw up. And that's a lot of times what people don't get when they do it. They just keep trying to cover up every single element. And along the way, her moving of the car was what got her caught, because her blood was in the car. So why the hell would her blood be in the car? Now, can somebody come up with a reason why her blood would have been in the car if she wasn't? What better story could she have come up with that she botched? What could she have come up with? I want to see what you come up with that. Ooh, I like it. Michaela, transfer. Mm-hmm. Well, yes, it was her blood in the car. Correct. That's how they knew she was in the car. But this is smart. See, Michaela would have been a better criminal. Transfer. How? Wait a minute. Jana gave her a ride home and she had a bloody nose. Now that's pushing it. It would be simpler than that. She had her period. No, the blood, I think, was on the steering wheel and on the stick shifter or whatever it is. What about the transfer? The transfer is very simple. If she didn't botch the story. I gave you the whole idea for the story earlier. What would be the better statement of why her blood was in the car? There you go. The men in black left it. Yes, they beat her, and then they took the money, and they ran out. They had the keys to the car. They jumped in the car, and they just drove around, hid the car, and then ran off, leaving the transfer of Brittany's blood in the car. That would have been the smart story. Brittany blew it, because she then went into the story how she was forced to move the car, which was the dumbest story ever. She went from, she got caught off guard and she blew it completely. Just blew it. It's pretty funny. Okay. All right. I'm going to get to the whole issue about why. That's part of the why. All right. I just explained why she moved the car, because she was trying, she wanted to, I don't know if she didn't want the car up front so people would see it, but mostly I think because she had to move the money out of the store to make it look like a robbery. She left the money in the store, wouldn't look that way. So she moved the money out of the store with the car. And I don't know what she did. Well, I don't know where she put the money, or where she hid the money, or she just left the money for somebody else to take, which pretty much somebody's going to take it if you leave it lying on the side of the curb. So, all right, now let's go. So we know she did it. That's not a question. She did it. She got convicted. She got convicted of first-degree murder. And what happened was a fascinating case. When they were in court, what happened was they're trying to explain. The defense attorney's got this problem. Turns out that pretty much there's no way he's going to get her out of this, because she's basically confessed to this thing by being in the car. Not more than that, but just always in the car. He knows it's going to go badly. He's trying to get her, the defense attorney is trying to get her out of first-degree murder. So this is what he does. He stands up in court and says, and shocked everybody, and said, yes, she did commit the crime. And people are like, what? You're just going to say she did it? He said, yes, she did commit the crime. But here is what he was trying to attempt to do. He was trying to say it wasn't premeditated. And therefore, because it wasn't premeditated, she just lost her brain. And they had an argument. She lost her mind and hit her, and then tried to cover up what she had done. Trying to get second degree. Second degree was possibly 15 years, as opposed to life in prison without possibility of parole. So that's what he went for. And a lot of people believe this. Now, let me go to the story that you're talking about. That what happened prior to, why did they go back? And what was this whole thing about? And what was the catalyst for the crime? All right. The catalyst was this. Let me see if I can find it here. Hold on a second. There was an issue at the stores and Lululemon that they had problems with employee theft because their stuff is expensive. Like Dr. Grande said, there's two crimes here. One is that someone was killed over taking $80 pair of leggings. And the second crime is that Lululemon charges $80 for them. Yeah, and there's a truth to that. Very expensive high-end store. So the people that work there, a lot of them stole stuff. So they had this methodology where when they left, they would look in each other's bags to make sure that nothing was in the bag from the store that was being taken out. I think that's pretty, I don't like that. I think that really bothers me. I think that's crazy. I think if you're going to do that, you ought to have a security guard go through people's belongings as they leave. To make one of the other coworkers look through your stuff, I think is a terrible idea. Because it puts them on the spot. It makes them uncomfortable having to rat out their fellow employees and stuff like that. Problem was, she had been suspected of stealing from another Lululemon store. And there was a whole thing that went down there, and she ended up at Bethesda. And she was suspected of stealing at Bethesda. She looked in her bag and saw a pair of clothing item worth about $80. And she asked her about, hey, where's the receipt? And she didn't have one. She said, oh, well, it was because blah, blah, blah. She had called her manager and said, hey, I caught her stealing. And they already were looking at her as a thief. So she caught her stealing. Now, they left the place. She had already reported, and it was going to be taken care of in the morning. I don't know how much she knew at that point in time, but clearly she knew that she had seen that she had stolen. And she knew something was going to go down badly. Now, the question would be, why didn't she do something then? Why didn't they have a big argument then? And, and then this went out of hand. And this, to me, is where the premeditation comes in. They both left the store. And I think once she left that store, she realized she's going to do me in. I don't know how much she knew. She had already told anybody, but she's like, she's going to do me in. So she decided, if I can get her back to the store, I can stop this. So she lured her back. She lured her back into the question is people have here is, was she just trying to talk her out of it, saying, hey, look, I admit I did it. Please don't ruin my life. I'm up for this great job. I'm about to get this job as a personal trainer. It's what I've wanted forever and ever and ever. Please don't destroy my life. I admit I did something stupid and foolish. Shouldn't have done it. I grabbed these because I wanted to look really good for my interview. Please don't rat me out. Some people think she brought her back specifically to talk to her and talk her out of it. I don't agree. I think she specifically brought her back to kill her. Why do I think that? Because she was already in trouble all the way through everything. And she knew she was a really very honest kind of person. She knew what kind of person she was. And she knew she was not going to lie for her. I think she brought her back there specifically to kill her. And I also think that her life was in such shambles at that point that she wanted to become a victim. Because if you become a victim, everything else you've ever done, people aren't going to talk about. Because what a horrible thing. Some people have asked me many times over, why didn't the McCanns, Kate and Jerry McCann, get charged with child neglect in Portugal? When they left their 3 children alone and Madeline went missing, why weren't they charged with neglect for leaving 3 little children under the age of 4 years old alone? And I've always said the reason they didn't do it was because at that point in time, the McCanns had their child was theoretically abducted, maybe being raped and tortured and killed. And it doesn't make good media for you to go and then arrest them for child neglect when their child is missing. You often see that they don't go in and do that with a family when they can't absolutely prove what happened. So she knows that if she becomes a victim, everything little shoplifting thing, that's going to vanish. I mean, after all, she was raped and almost killed. And she lived through this horrific thing. Her slate will be wiped clean and everybody will feel sorry for her. She will get her job as a personal trainer. She will have people hugging her and kissing her and telling her she's a wonderful girl. I'm so sorry you went through all this. And nobody's going to talk about that she was stealing stuff. I think she was wiping the slate clean by becoming a victim and getting the attention she desired, because I'll get into her whole personality in a minute, because this girl was killed. Oh, well, that was unfortunate, but she was a victim too. And she's the living victim. And I'll tell you over and over again, the murdered victim is never given as much attention as the living victim, because a living victim can keep coming before the cameras and keep talking. The poor actual murdered victim, not so much. So that's why sometimes even in a courtroom situation, you'll see people feeling sorry for, people feel sorry for Scott Peterson, not Lacey Peterson. Why? Because Scott Peterson is still alive. And you can see his face and you can see him talk and move. Lacey Peterson is just a figment of your imagination. She's gone. And so you see a lot more sympathy toward sometimes killers than you do toward the victims of those killers. When you get Sister Pragian going in, sitting with a serial killer and saying, I love you, as he's being, put to death. It's like, what about all his victims? They're faceless, but he matters. So I think she knows how this works. She was going to become a celebrity and she was going to have sympathy and all of that. I think it was premeditated. Now, they did not say so in court, but what they did say so in court was that it took her so long to die. So many instruments were used to kill her over such a long period of time. They're saying 15 minutes. And she kept going for new objects to hurt her with. That their premeditation doesn't have to be 2 hours before or 10 days before or 2 years before. Premeditation can be 5 minutes before. All you need is enough time to say, I could have made another choice. She hit her because she was angry with her. She hit her a few times, and she fell to the floor crying. That's enough. If she went and got another tool and came back and did some more to her, that's premeditation. She then decided to kill her. First, it was just, I hit her, but now I've decided to kill her. That's premeditation. So they got her on that, because The defense tried for it just was an explosive, she lost her temper. But the police and the prosecutor were able to prove that the amount of time it took to kill her, with the amount of instruments it took to kill her, with the amount of the amount of time she was hit or stabbed to kill her, over 300, was enough to say it was premeditated. But I believe it was premeditated from the time she realized, if I don't bring her back here and do something, she's going to screw me over. And I'm going to lose the next job. I'm going to get a bad reputation. And my life is. Now, let me show you let me show you a couple. I'm going to get into her history to back all of this up for what I'm saying. But I want to point out a couple things people said, which I thought, let me try to find the spot. I can't read the letters here, so I got to see what it says. All right, here we go. Here's one person's view. Brittany probably asked Jana not to report the theft to store manager Rachel. I can't pronounce her name. Jana probably responded in one of two ways. It's too late. I already have. Now, this is assuming that she really did just bring her back because she left her purse there or her wallet. It's too late. I already have. Or I can't do that. It's between you and Rachel. Within seconds, McCarthy concluded, Brittany attacked. Was she enraged? Was she trying to silence the witness? McCarthy had always thought it was a combination of the two. He had come to believe something else. At some point after the murder, maybe during the staging or after she started talking to the detectives or after the Lululemon Athletica company had reached out to lend her support, Brittany actually thought she'd come out of the whole thing ahead. She'd have her job at Equinox. She'd have the sympathy of all of those around her. It wouldn't be that big a deal, really. But who really knows what happened in those critical seconds? Only Brittany, maybe not even Brittany. All right. He's saying that she didn't decide to kill her until she became enraged. I don't agree. But here's another viewpoint. Oh, that's not the one. All right. This is the one. She was on her way, McCarthy said. It was more than a pair of pants. It was an unraveling of the life she had set up for herself. So Brittany came up with a ruse about forgetting her wallet and called Jana. She lured Jana back to the place where this killing began. That's what I believe happened. Now, here's somebody from YouTube. She's not a sociopath. Okay. And here's why. If she was one, she wouldn't have cared when Jana, whatever her name was, found out she had stolen. She would have just made up some other lie to justify the stealing or quit the job if it escalated. That she felt incredibly scared and ashamed says she was not yet in terms with her dishonesty. She's believing that she was so embarrassed by what she did, she couldn't handle it. Because if she was a sociopath, she'd go, "There's no big deal," and she would just lie. I can see where she's coming from, but I'm going to prove her wrong. Also, if it was planned, she wouldn't have used weapons from the stores. Why not? There's weapons in the store. The planning was within 15 minutes. She didn't plan this it's not like she thought, okay, next month I'm going to kill her. I will bring a knife or I'll bring a gun. She was walking away from the store. She didn't have any weapons with her. She thought to herself, I'm going to get her. I'm going to get her back in the store and I'm going to do something to her. And she did. During the argument, the blonde lady must have said something that triggered her so much that she made the first attack. Whoa. Now she blamed the victim, this person. She said something like, I'm going to report you. And it was her fault that she went nuts. So, okay. So, I see where she's coming from because a lot of people think this is the fact that she had 300 wounds to her body. That must be rage. I'm going to give you a second thought on that. She was an athlete, actually, but she hadn't been an athlete for a while, but she did work out really well. So she was in good shape, but she's also a small girl. And it's not as easy to kill people as you think when you're trying to hit them with stuff. So it may be that she just didn't have the strength in her arms. Like a big guy who's big, huge, big guy could simply smash her face in with a few punches and pick up something and just smash her in. But with what tool she had, she was probably hacking away at her, and it was hurting her more and more and more and more, but not enough to kill that quickly until she finally found better tools to do it. Once she had her on the ground and she was in pain and she kept beating at her. It took a lot of beating for her to accomplish until she found that big knife thing and then finished her off. So, yeah, she smashed her up a lot. But the power there's a great difference between messing somebody's face up brutally messing somebody's face up and causing their death. I mean, you can have your face hit 100 times and not cause your death, but it can cause, I say, mess you up terribly. You could hit somebody in the eye. Now they're blinded. They can't see what they're doing. And you keep hitting them and you smash their nose in. You've got a broken nose and then you smash their teeth. All of that can happen, but you're not dying. So it takes a while, when you're doing all that, when you're not that strong and your weapons suck to actually get rid of her. So she may have found that was harder than she thought until she found that nice knife. And then that worked out. I think there was rage, but I think more of it was that she was pissed off that this woman was going to rat around. And I don't think it had anything to do with who Jana was. I think it's just Jana was going to be honest and tell the story, and then it was going to mess her life up yet again. And when I say yet again, this is where it all comes down to is, who was Brittany? I'll check your comments and I'll read you a little about her life. You're going to find it interesting. She lies, she steals, she kills. Well, pretty much. She wasn't a killer before. She hadn't done any violent things before. And a lot of times people say, well, I never saw anything, that kind of thing in her. But that's not necessarily true. I wonder if it wasn't due to her wanting to do this out of anger, like beat up, torture her. It's not. If not that, I wonder if she detached herself and went into mode of believing she's a male robber. No. This is fanciful thinking. It's kind of Hollywood stuff. No. She knew exactly what she was doing. She's planning all of this. She is who she is. She doesn't have to put herself in the mind of anything else. She doesn't think she's a male robber. She's not psychotic. She was very, very clear about what she was doing. And that's one of the reasons we know she's not psychotic. If she'd been psychotic, she would have stabbed her up and then ran out the door, blood all over her. But no, and that might have done her better. But since she worked so hard to cover everything up, all of that staging means she was in her right mind and knew exactly what she was doing. So, yeah. So she's an absolute psychopath or a sociopath. Well, okay, let me go back into her history, because this is where you're going to find it really interesting. Because her family will say things like, let me see if I can find it. All right. I apologize. People don't, the little squares are like this. And when there's writing in them, the writing's this big. So sometimes I have to jump through a couple of them. Okay. This is what her brother said. What do you think is in her background? Listen. That's what the police asked. What do you think is in her background? Her brother said, listen, our whole family dropped everything they were doing to come to her aid. If any of us suspected this, we wouldn't have reacted this way. Police ask, any kind of emotional problems before? And her brother says, no. This is what we call denial. All right. So who was Brittany? All right. From the book, which I really like by Dan Morse. This is where I got some really interesting information. All right. She was born 6 out of 9 in her family. Her family seemed to be a great family, by the way. I want to point out, sometimes when you see pictures, you'll see things like this. I kept this one because I thought it goes to show you how they try to portray people. Here we have happy, joyful Jana. Then we have this picture of Brittany. And you go, oh, yeah, she looks like a criminal. Brittany really looks like this. Brittany is a very attractive woman. Brittany was a very happy woman to people. And she loved to help people and dress up, and she worked hard. She had a lot of good qualities. And people saw this Brittany, which is why her family goes, I don't think she could have done anything wrong. But this is where psychopathy comes in, because everybody thinks psychopaths have to be really noticeable, but they're not necessarily noticeable depending on what kind of psychopath they are. All right, so let me read you some stuff. When she was young, one of their family friends needed a babysitter, so she hired her older sister. And the younger Norwood girl started tagging along. She seemed different, not only from her older sister, but her other siblings as well. Brittany seemed to always be tagging along and looking down when she spoke. Maybe it was shyness. A few babysitting sessions later, Leslie feared it was something else. Her husband kept a bowl of change on his nightstand, a pile of coins that would slowly grow until it overflowed and finally needed attention. Now, though, the pile was getting smaller. And there was a bag filled with jewelry. It was inexpensive. Wait, sorry, a second. I just knocked that out. It was inexpensive costume stuff, but it had belonged to Leslie's late mother. And she'd like to take the bag out periodically, look at the jewelry, and remember her mom. When she did so, about half of it appeared to be gone. So this was an indication that at a very young age, she was stealing. Now, a lot of people go into kleptomania, like she's just a kleptomaniac. No, that's not what she's about. What she wanted was things that she couldn't have. Now, 6 out of 9 kids. Parents even tried to send them to private school when they were young. It looked like a great family. Both of their families looked like wonderful people. Absolutely. She was extremely successful. All her brothers and sisters were very successful. By the time she was arrested, she was living. Her sister had a rental property in DC, which was quite expensive, and she was living in the basement apartment of that, which I think for her wasn't a happy thing. Her sister had done really well, and she was stuck in the damn basement of her sister's place. But I'll read you, when you see what she went through during her life, you're going to see what I'm talking about. So she was a little thief when she was young. And it may be because out of 9 children, a lot of times you get hand-me-downs. Maybe you don't get as much money to spend because a lot of kids. I have an only grandchild. She doesn't want for anything. My kids were growing up. We struggled. We went to thrift stores. I remember as the last child of 3 girls, I got hand-me-downs, and I never forgave my mother for that, because what she did was, my mother was an ice capades skater. She was in the ice capades, and she had good skating boots, skates that were fine. And so she had bought the oldest girl, my oldest sister, Stanzioni skates, Stanzioni boots, great boots from a top creator of boots in New York City. And so my sister Carol got these really great boots. And I think that might have gone down to my sister Joyce. So when she outgrew them, it went to Joyce. Then it went to me. The problem was, by the time it got to me, the boots had been so well used, they were very weak. And instead of being stiff when they hold your feet there, they were weak. My mother always accused me of having weak ankles. And I hated skating because when I went out to skate, my feet just flopped over. Now, of all people, my mother should have known. I can't use old boots. And one day when I was a teenager, I think, I went to the skating rink with some friends and rented some crappy rink skates, and they were hard as rocks. And for the first time in my life, I was able to skate around without my ankles caving in. And then I realized what had happened, that all these years that I was accused of having weak ankles, I had bad hand-me-downs. So I know you can, if you're on the lower end, sometimes you get hand-me-downs. Sometimes you also have to struggle with everybody else does stuff before you, and then you're like, who are you? And again, in my family, my sister Carol became a skater like my mother. My sister Joyce became an organist, also like my mother. And and those are the 2 big things in my family, and I couldn't figure out what to do. So I took up bowling, and nobody cared. Nobody liked bowling. I did karate, and nobody liked karate. So it's like I couldn't do the thing that made the family proud, or my parents proud, or it wasn't that they weren't proud. I mean, they just had no interest in those things. So so your kids are growing up, and one becomes a football player, and one becomes a baseball player, and the other one plays the violin, and then you come along. You're like, what's left for me? Do I just to also play the violin? Do I also, it's tough. It's tough being, in that group. Now, I don't know that was her problem. I don't know what the problem was. She went to a private elementary school, and some of the kids had more money than she did. So she wanted to get money, and so she could have more stuff. I don't know. I'm just saying it could be that. But then she went on this school trip, and she just disappeared off the bus, and they didn't know what the hell happened to her. And she didn't come back. And they just found a different way home. And they asked her, what were you thinking? And she said, well, we got lost. So that was that. She very nonchalantly, like she didn't care that she freaked everybody out. That was another sign. Then let's see what else it says here. She studied sociology, but struggled, winding up on academic probation by the end of her freshman year at college. So she wasn't doing as well as she should. and she got a soccer scholarship. She was very athletic. She got a soccer scholarship, but that put her soccer scholarship in danger. She practiced with the soccer team, but didn't play games, a common practice for first-year college athletes called redshirting, which allows them to extend college to 5 years. And so she did that. By her sophomore year, though, Brittany picked up her grades and exploded on the soccer field, starting all 19 games and earning an award as the best rookie among the 9 teams in Stony Brook's athletic conference. Now you think, okay, things are going great. Her coach, Sue Ryan, said in a news release that Brittany had the mental makeup of all great defenders. Now this is interesting. Quote, Brittany hates losing more than she likes winning. Now that's interesting, because her problem I believe, was the ego, such an ego that she could not stand ever losing. And a lot of times you'll see this with narcissism. They don't like it when you call them out. They don't like it when you say, this person did better than you. They don't like losing. And they'll do anything they can to keep from losing, because they find that a massive insult to them. And so she didn't like losing. So then during that year, she would go out with her friends. It says here, the two would go shopping at a nearby mall or eat out at restaurants, with Brittany often picking up the tab. Oh, see, she's generous. But her friend's wallet kept disappearing. Sometimes something she first chalked up to misplacing it. She told several teammates, who stunned her with a warning. It was probably Brittany. They suspected Brittany of going into lockers, stealing textbooks, and reselling them. Her friend also couldn't track down a Versace shirt. She and her teammates finally confronted Brittany, who broke down and admitted it, but she said she wouldn't do it again. They warned other students about her. Brittany's really fun to hang with, they would say, but be careful. She steals and she lies. All right, so she got booted out of that program. So she lost her scholarship. What happened here? Let's see. Yeah, 2003. Oh, wait a minute. She went to another friend's house, and after she was there, a friend couldn't find $60 that she had. Brittany had been at her place. It was also strange. The relatively small value items, the insistence from Brittany that everything was fine. She would look you dead in the face and say she didn't know where it was. So she was a thief and a liar, and she didn't care. She took what she wanted. And even though there were smaller items, they were things that I guess she couldn't afford. And if she could resell textbooks, she gets extra money. She steals people's clothing. She gets extra money so she can spend it to look good or to get whatever she wanted. And you will see she loved the highfalutin lifestyle. She wanted to be the rich girl. She did. In 2003, Brittany's 4th year at Stony Brook and 3rd season on the field, she played in only 12 of 19 soccer games. By then, teammates had taken their complaints to the coach. Brittany and the team parted ways, with accounts differing over how it happened, but the result was clear. And it quickly punctured everything. Not only her dreams of playing for the U.S. national team, but her identity on campus, and even more importantly, the scholarship that paid for her classes. By the fall of 2004, Brittany was out of school completely, just 11 credits shy of graduating. And you'll find people who suffer from psychopathy often. They don't have an understanding that they have to do what they need to do, or they're going to end up screwing everything, because they are very much in the moment. I want what I want, and I don't see why I have to wait, or I want what I want, and I want what you have, so I'm going to take it. So anyway, she got booted. Now, to many who asked, even her family members, she claimed to have graduated from Stony Brook. See, she lies to her family. The family has said she had no emotional problems. She's been stealing. She stole as a child. She stole as a teenager. She stole as a college student. All these things. I'm going to say that they knew something was wrong with this girl. But because she was smiling and all that stuff, they keep trying to just excuse her. She's our little sister type of thing. So she lied to them. Said there was a hang-up over tuition loans that kept her from being allowed to attend the graduation ceremony. So then we go on. Now she's now working. She works for, I guess, a dentist, this guy named Dr. Maury Branch. They hit it off. at this dental office. So she worked for him. The two were not only dating in 2006, but she was working in the dental practice as office manager. She's competent. Brittany was a smart girl and very competent, able to do things and think quickly. She could have not been a failure. She only made herself a failure by the fact that she, unfortunately, in my opinion, had a problem with being a psychopath. But over time, Maury found things not adding up, like whether or not Brittany had her degree, and he broke up with her and she left the practice in 2007. It was not an easy breakup. Indeed, it prompted what Maury described as a series of bizarre events that prompted him and his new girlfriend, Marjorie Noel, to go to the D.C. Superior Court to file restraining orders against Brittany. In sworn statements given to the court, they made several assertions. Brittany called weekly after the breakup. Maury said he just wanted to be friends. One Sunday afternoon, Brittany texted him to say she was coming over, and he ignored the message and left the house. A short time later, when he and Marjorie returned, they discovered a number of Marjorie's belongings missing: a Movado watch, a pair of diamond earrings, a bottle of Vera Wang perfume, a Lacoste polo shirt, checks from her checkbook, her house keys, her car keys, and her cell phone. It had been Brittany, they asserted, who still had a key to the place and must have learned the burglar alarm code by watching Maury punch it in. Later, Marjorie found her cell phone in her car, and by then, Brittany must have figured out the number. She called, Marjorie picked it up and said hello, and Brittany hung up. In the statements filed in the court, Marjorie alleged that she was in immediate danger and asked that Brittany be ordered to return all of her stuff and undergo psychological testing. Maury made a similar request, saying that Brittany had stolen from him as well, and that when they were together, Brittany would push and punch him and throw things at him. He told the court Brittany needed psychiatric evaluation and anger management counseling. The judge ordered Brittany to stay away from Maury and Marjorie for 2 weeks, a standard move pending a hearing on their allegations. Brittany showed up at court and signed a consent order, agreeing to stay away from the couple for a year without admitting to the accusations. Brittany admitted to a close friend she'd gone off on the dentist and had thrown things at him, but she said it was because he started to date Marjorie while they were still together, something Brittany found out by following him one day. In Brittany's view, Maury had filed the restraining order to show his new girlfriend how serious he was about moving on. The whole matter seemed to be quietly going away until Marjorie returned to the courthouse accusing Brittany of having violated the restraining order 6 weeks earlier. Marjorie claimed that Brittany had driven a dark blue Honda Accord to an alley next to Maury's house and then tailed the couple to an Office Depot in Silver Spring. The court set a new hearing on whether to file criminal contempt charges against Brittany for violating her restraining order. At the time, Brittany was working a new job at the front desk of the Willard Intercontinental Hotel, a 4-star luxury hotel. Now, basically what happened was she was able to not go back to court, and the thing just ran out of time, and so she never got charged with anything. But you see, she's vindictive, she's a stalker, and she's a thief. And her family says she has no problems. She got problems. All right, now she's working at the Willard, and this gets kind of interesting because I had a friend who was a manager at the Willard, and I should have called her to find out whether she knew Brittany, but I haven't had a chance to do it. Willard Hotel is one of the finest hotels in DC. So she was hold on a second. I just clicked on something. Hold on. All right, so where are we? Okay. It's being very touchy. The screen is touchy. I'm on the Kindle here and trying to pull up the highlights. And if you click on the wrong thing, it disappears. All right. Where is it? What's going on here? Hold on a second. Blue highlights. Blue highlights. Blue highlights. All right. Let me get back to where she's at the Willard. All right. Because it just, stop it. Okay, I'm going to just do it this way because it keeps moving. Brittany was an ideal presence in the Willard Hotel to greet hotel guests. She was petite, striking, smiling, and smartly appointed in a dark business suit over a white blouse. Her co-workers began to rely on her to deal with the rudest of the guests. Those exhausted after travel, those expecting perfect service, for the Willards' high rates. Okay, so she was very good at her job. Guys, look at her smile. And she knows how to schmooze. Now, that's something she's really good at. She's schmoozing. And I'm going to tell you, there's probably a reason she's schmoozing. Wait and find out. Outside of work, as some of her coworkers knew, Brittany had also settled into an apartment inside a chic building overlooking DC's trendy Columbia Heights neighborhood. She could have people over for cocktails and take them out to a host of bars and restaurants just steps away. Very nice area. But privately, she was making trips to the DC Superior Court for the stalking allegations, and then a whole new matter. And on April 25th, 2008, the management company of the sleek apartment building filed a claim to evict Brittany and her roommate because they were 2 months late on their $2,565 monthly rent. After a brief legal proceeding, the roommates were evicted, and Brittany moved in with one of her sisters. As for the stalking claims, Brittany managed to make them go away by not showing up in court. And that's how she got away with that. So they expired and she didn't have to go back. Now, so she's working at the Willard. And now my friend was a manager at the Willard, and she made a pretty good salary, but she was not a manager. I'm sure she made a good salary and maybe got tips, but that she could afford where she stayed is another question. And clearly she could not. So the question about it is, what about making money there? All right. And what was happening there? At the Willard, work demands and long hours mounted. And she was like, oh, I'm so tired. I can't do this anymore. And so it says here, let's see. Apparently she had a taste for nice things, designer clothes, $35 crab cakes, Maker's Mark bourbon, close-in seats to the Washington Redskins game. She was known for always having great hair. She's spending a fortune. Now, she's not making a fortune, okay? She wanted to buy a boutique condo or a loft. She wanted to buy one, and she's not in any position to do so. And then it says here, she carried on a long-time casual relationship with a Democratic Party operative that seemed to involve two features: him telling her when he'd be appearing on TV, and the two of them getting together for sex. And right about here, I'm like, I'm going to say, when she was at the Willard, she probably stole from customers and stole from the Willard, and she also meets a lot of very wealthy men. I'm going to say she might be involved in prostitution. And one could say, well, that's jumping to conclusions. But let me see if I can find this statement. Because I looked through the book, I'm like, she left the Willard. I'm like, why did she leave the Willard? Let's see if this is it. I'm sorry, that's not it. Where is the thing about her leaving the Willard? Sorry, I'm going to have to flip through a second. Nope, not there either. I got to find it. How about here? Oh, this is just funny. Nothing in the Lululemon suspect's past suggests she could have done what the police allege. Yes, she could. Okay, here we go. A Willard spokesman confirmed that Norwood worked at the hotel and left, quote, on her own accord, but the spokeswoman declined to discuss Norwood's job or performance. I'm going to say, you leave. You leave now. A lot of times when they have a problem person, they don't want to go through the embarrassment of having to explain what this person was doing at their establishment. So they just pull them in and say, look, you leave, or we're going to have to make this a big deal. And for the benefit of both, she walked away. What did she do at the Willard? I don't know. But she's oddly dating this Democrat guy for mostly just sex. And I'm thinking, this is suspicious. What is really going on with this girl? Okay. And sure enough, what did I find out? That she was over at sugardaddy.com. Good old sugardaddy.com. And everybody knows, unless you're stupid, sugardaddy.com is a prostitution site. It is where men with money get women to prostitute themselves. Now, what they do is, theoretically, as opposed to just paying for a night, they make deals with these women. Either they put them up in a fancy place, become a mistress, or they see them so many times. Once a month, they see the guy for a lovely evening out and they have sex with them. Of course, sex is always included. There's never such a thing as just going on a date. Just like these dating services. I always thought those were really funny. Guys come into town and they go to these dating services and escort services. Escorts. They hire an escort. What do you think? They hire an escort to go to dinner with or to the theater? No, they hire an escort for sex. So a lot of times the escort just simply goes to a hotel room and leaves. That's all it is. It's prostitution. SugarDaddy.com is prostitution. And all you women who are on SugarDaddy.com and all you men who are on SugarDaddy.com who are going to send me hate mail, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. And don't tell me any silly sob stories about, oh no, we really truly are just in love. Oh, get out of here. Stop it. Just stop it. It's nonsense. There's a reason it's called sugar daddy. A sugar daddy is one that takes care of you for something, which is sex. So she was on SugarDaddy.com. She was trying to make money one way or the other. So she steals, she lies, and she manipulates, and I'm pretty sure she prostitutes as well, because that's where she's at. But her family says she don't have any problems. Yeah, she's got problems. So it turns out that all kinds of stuff that she's not telling true as it gets toward the time of the Lululemon thing. When she completed her form, she was trying to get this job. She got the job first in Lululemon's store in Washington, D.C. What did she put on her application? She created a fictitious paper trail in keeping with this persona that she had, indicating not only that she had graduated from Stony Brook, but that she had posted a 3.4 GPA average when actually she only had 1.98. She also reported that she'd been making $55,000 a year at the Willard, quite a bit much more than the Lululemon job, which starts at $11 an hour. So why would you give up a $55,000 a year job for $11 an hour? I'm going to say, A, you didn't make $55,000 a year, and B, you might have made some side money to add up to that $55,000. So anyway, so she wants to start at Lululemon. She desired a career change. That's why she left with the Willard, because she wanted a career change to be a clerk in a clothing store. Sure. Okay. So Lulu would be an unusual place to work, one that reflected the same. She had the Zen. They have this whole Zen type of thinking, which is kind of cool, the way they wanted the people to think about themselves, and it's very yoga-like and all that stuff. Not stealing and not coveting. They're following a Sanskrit concept called asteya. And it's not stealing and not coveting. But of course, she was very good at stealing and coveting a whole lot of things. So she's picking the worst place to work, right? And they're encouraged to watch DVDs by self-help guru Brian Tracy as a mission to elevate the world from mediocrity to greatness. And actually, she wanted to get into management, and she actually had a heck of a background with her, by the way. She had stellar background, and her educational background was fantastic. She had worked with Halliburton for 3 years. She'd lived in Spain for school. She was working, I think, on her MBA, and she was moving up. She either would move up in Lululemon or higher than that eventually. But she was using Lululemon as her project for her MBA. She wanted to leave with the Willard and become a store clerk. Okay, so she spoke to her brother Chris about how during her childhood she thought she was fat and hated the way people looked at her. So that's why she wanted to be a personal trainer, to help people. I'm going to say she wanted to be a personal trainer because she liked looking sleek and she liked people looking up to her. Okay, meanwhile, back in Georgetown where she was working, employees were reporting incidents of missing cash, money taken from wallets in the back room, and registers coming up short. Brittany said that she too was missing money. Still, the store manager grew suspicious. No one ever accused Brittany of stealing, but she had worked all the shifts reporting problems. Kind of like the nurses who are always on shift when somebody dies, when they shouldn't have. It's like you have 13 people who died on all these different shifts, and she was this nurse on every one of them. So she's working every time things go missing. So they made this deal too. Lululemon had this thing, a shop night, where workers could purchase apparel at 70% off. It's an even steeper discount than normal. To ward off depletion of inventory, the company set purchase limits at $1,000. That's really actually quite generous. At the Georgetown store, Brittany asked the manager on duty if she could go a little over the limit. The manager agreed, but later thought she was talking about a relatively minor amount. Yet Brittany more than doubled the purchase limit, racking up $2,196 worth of purchases, which with a discount only cost her $659. The manager felt her goodwill had been taken advantage of, and her suspicions about Brittany only grew. By now, she was more strongly suspected Brittany of the thefts. On December 29th, 2010, she brought Brittany in for a meeting and asked her about going over the 1,000 shop night limit. Brittany questioned why the rules were suddenly so strict, and the manager fired her on the spot for discount abuse in a termination letter. However, she complained to the regional manager, and the regional manager decided they didn't want trouble. And this happens a lot. And, a lot of companies, they will not tell you, these days, there are places where there was a guy who I suspected in some very violent sexual homicides. And I was talking to his ex-employers. And they were like, well, we called the last company and they said nothing bad about him. But then when we got him, we were like horrified at what we were dealing with. And I said, well, when you fired him and the next person called, what did you say? Well, we didn't say anything either, because nobody wants to get sued. So it used to be that, you could call all the previous employers and get reports. And a lot of times now they just won't even talk to you because they don't want to say anything that is going to get themselves in trouble. So that's what the Willard went. So she got her job and they probably had no clue what happened at the Willard. So now she complains to the general manager, the regional manager, and they're like, okay, we don't want trouble with this woman. Let's pretend, let's just let that go. And they moved her to the Bethesda store. And that's where it all went down. So the store manager's decision was overturned by the regional manager. And within 2 weeks, Brittany met, she was reinstated and was then worked at the Bethesda store. And there you go. And then she started stealing from the Bethesda store and the people that worked there. So she was unable to stop whatever the hell she was doing. And she was still on sugardaddy.com, and she was trying all kinds of methods to make something of her life. But the problem was she never did it the right way. She wasn't willing to wait. She wasn't willing to live in a circumstance that she could afford and build from there. She wasn't willing to go back to school and finish her degree. She wasn't willing to do things. She wasn't willing to come clean with her family. A family of money. I bet they would have loaned money to put her back in school. But they didn't. And, because she didn't ask for that. But she always had a story. And she has all the signs of psychopathy. And let's see if I can find the thing I just shut my iPad. But I really liked a couple of things that were said about psychopathy from a few other people, not myself. Let me find it, because there were just some really great statements. Let's see if I can locate them. Again, I have to find where I shoveled them into. Here we go. Psychopaths, they wrote in this one book, are threats not only because they can con and manipulate, but also because they seek thrills and control. If psychopaths commit a homicide, their killing likely will be planned and purposeful, not the result of a loss of emotional control. Their motive more commonly will involve sadistic gratification. And part of it was, you think you're so great. They didn't work together that long, but she probably worked long enough to see her as a 100% successful human being with places to go. And she knew who she was. She had failed and failed and failed and failed. And so she would probably found her to be that person that she should have been, but wasn't, and probably really resented her. So I think that 300 wounds to her body a lot of it was sadism from her, because she probably not hated her personally, but hated what she represented. When faced, their motive will more commonly involve sadistic gratification. When faced with overwhelming evidence of their guilt, they frequently will claim they lost control or were in a rage when committing the act of violence. In fact, their violence often is emotionless, calculated, and completely controlled. I believe that is true. I believe if you had a video on there, you would not see her like shrieking and tears running down her face. No, you would have found her just and smiling. Totally controlled. I thought that was a brilliant statement there. There was one more, if I can find it, that I really, really liked. Um, I probably won't find it. Darn it all. Yeah. I copied it someplace. I copy so many things a lot of times when I do this that I have way too much stuff that I've saved and I can never find it when I go back. But I believe she to me looks like a psychopath now, and everything that she's done reminds me of a person who definitely is a psychopath. And the crime she committed was not just some loss of control and rage. It's psychopathy. Now, one of the things she did when she finally semi-admitted it to her family, you ask, why did she do this? So anyway, she's talking to Chris. This is her brother. He hung up and continued speaking with Marissa. That's the sister. The girl accused Brittany of shoplifting, and Brittany lost it. She snapped. She said, Chris, I don't know what happened. And then the rest of the night, she was trying to cover it up. And that's why she can't sleep. See, now first of all, that's how that was a confession that the police used, but also that she's trying to tell her brother that she caused her to lose her mind. And then she didn't know what happened. So her brother can now say, well, she didn't mean to do it. Let's go on. And I didn't start it, Brittany said, looking down. You didn't start it? No, Jana started it. So yeah, so again, blame the victim. Then she says, I fucked up our whole family, Brittany said. Don't say that, Marissa. We're never going to judge you. You know that. We all love you, Chris said. Your family's going to be fine, okay? And this is where the family is fooled by the psychopath. She claims she's all worried about her family. She doesn't care about her family. What she wants to do is make sure her family doesn't forget about her, that her family gets her the defense attorneys, that her family helps her with the appeals, that her family visits her, that her family sends her stuff, whatever she can get her family to do for her. She's still using and manipulating people, and her family is too kind to see it. Let's see, there was one other thing I wanted to point out about the family. Jana said, this is at the trial. I know whatever I say will not take away the pain of losing Jana. I'm truly sorry. Losing Jana. No, the family didn't lose Jana. You murdered her. You murdered their daughter. That's not any kind of remorse. And if everybody thinks that's remorse, you're a fool. You're not a fool, but you're being fooled. That's not remorse. That's her trying to get a better deal. She still has no remorse. She still doesn't think she didn't care what she did. She only cares that she got caught, and now she got to go to prison. And her family has been behind her since she's gone to prison. They've stood by her. They should run away from her. And again, I think what happens to families is they remember what she was they remember when she was a little girl, and they also remember all the times she seemed like a nice person. And that is really hard to deal with sometimes. So let's say she comes over and she's like, hey, they all go, look, Auntie Brittany is here. And Auntie Brittany comes in and she takes the niece or the nephew. She takes them out for ice cream. She takes them to the park. She takes them to whatever. And she pays for all their stuff and they adore her. And she's so fun and friendly. And they're like, see, that's the Brittany we know. Well, yeah, that's the Brittany she presented to you. And even a psychopath is not mean all the time. And psychopaths enjoy doing things. A psychopath can enjoy being with their family. They enjoy having fun. They enjoy partying. They enjoy drinking. They enjoy having Thanksgiving dinner. They enjoy things. And as long as people are going, and saying nice things to them or saying, you're so brilliant or you're so pretty, whatever, they can get a lot of attention. They're having a good time. They don't necessarily dislike their family. Their family is very useful to them. So a family often sees a person who they see enough good of them, of their good behavior, that when they do the bad behavior, they toss that away or they try to say, I must not be seeing that correctly, because even psychopaths, generally speaking, most of the day, they don't do bad things. I mean, they go to work, they do their job, they say hi to people on the street. They might mow some older people's lawn. You know what I mean? They might do these nice things. A lot of it's as a cover. That's the mask that they can put on, a mask of sanity. That one of the books is called. Put a mask of sanity on so that people think you are this when you're not really that. But you fake it. You're acting a lot of the time when you're a psychopath because you don't really have those feelings for other people and you don't think the way they do. But you know what will work. You've learned to manipulate. So you put on an acting job. You act at work, you act with your family, you act and act. And a lot of times you enjoy acting because acting brings you something. It doesn't mean it's the true you. And when the true you comes out, they can't accept it because they just don't understand it because it doesn't match what they think they know. So I'm sure her family, I don't know, maybe her family's finally realized what she is, but I'm going to say probably not. She probably writes letters home and just says, well, except for that one horrible night of my life, you know, I'm the Brittany you know. And that, they even tried to say that. It was just this one moment in time that doesn't represent her. And I will say that one moment in time exactly represented her, which is why she's serving life in prison. I'll go to some of your comments now. Well, that's interesting. Johanna says, I get it. My cousin is a complete narcissist and we all make excuses for her, except me, but no one wants to accept it. Yeah, it's very hard to accept. It really, truly is. And that's correct. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. That is very true. Maybe if her manager had told her that she already contacted the supervisor, that she had reached a wall where she could control the situation and got upset. Well, I don't know how much Brittany knew, at what point she knew and how much she knew. But I will say she knew enough to bring her back to kill her. And I do believe it's premeditated. She probably also played the victim every time she got in trouble and blamed it on somebody else. She did say other people committed the crimes and not her. I didn't steal that. Yeah. And that, a lot of times with this is gaslighting people too, where, you know, you go in your house and you look for your watch that you swear to God you put on the nightstand, but the watch is not there. And they say, I don't know what the heck happened to it. Somebody must have stolen it. And you look at the person, the only person who was in the house was her, you know, and you're like, do you know what happened to it? And she says, well, no, of course not. And then you feel guilty. You're accusing somebody of stealing something. And then you think, yeah, maybe I screwed up. Maybe it wasn't on the nightstand. Maybe I put it someplace. Now, I'll tell you one story because this can be actually true. So I had one of these expensive, headsets, Sony, it's like, I don't know what they cost, $200 to $300, something like that. And that's the one I use when on the phone, and when I can watch a movie, it's a sound silencing. So on an airplane, it just wipes out all the sound. You feel like you're floating through space. It's great, costly, but great. Well, I came home after the ladies had cleaned my house. I have a lovely group of ladies from El Salvador who clean my house because I cannot clean to save my life, and I hate doing it, and I'd rather pay somebody else. So anyway, they come in and they do this really nice job, and my headset was missing, and I'm like, what the heck? Now, I had trust in these ladies. They were the type that if they found a dollar bill on the floor, they put it up on the table because that is what you're supposed to do. As a matter of fact, I worked as I think I did. When was this? I worked as one of these restaurant critics and hotel critics, where you go into the hotel, for example, and you do things like take a $5 bill and stick it underneath the bed or leave it in a corner. And if that $5 bill is gone after the cleaning ladies are there, they get fired because they took the $5 and pocketed it when it should have been put back up on the table or whatever. Because they're not supposed to take something just because it fell someplace. Your jewelry falls someplace. They say, oh, they don't know what happened to it, so I'll just take it. Mm-mm. So these women had done that. They had put things where they belonged, but the headset was gone. I searched and searched and searched for that damn headset, and I could not find it. And I'm like, what the heck? And then I went through a crime scene reenactment. I said, what has happened in my house prior to them coming? What could it be if they didn't do it? I don't want to accuse them because I like them and I don't want to think they did this. But then again, I don't want them back if they did do it. And I realized something really interesting. I remember taking off the headset and tossing it on the bed. And then I had taken the covers and tossed them back. And do you know what happened? The headset flipped off into a box. And that box, I can't remember what was in the box. I can't remember if I was going to throw the box away or I put it back in another closet. Some clothes, other clothes were in there. I just picked it up and put it away. I found that headset. And I almost accused innocent people of doing something. So because it did disappear, it disappeared by that methodology. Nobody was at fault. It was just a freak thing. But I didn't know if they had done something or not. So, when something goes missing in your home and Brittany has been over, do you believe that she did it? Especially when she doesn't seem like she needs to do it. It's not like she's starving to death or something, but suddenly your necklace is missing or your $60 is missing. So there were people who constantly had suspicions of her, especially when they talked to other people and she showed up at all those locations. So yes, eventually they realized she's a thief. But you can get away with it for quite a long time by making people think that they shouldn't be accusing you, and you just gaslight them. So Taylor says she was probably viewed as a little sweet girl. Yes, because she also acted sweet. That's a tricky thing. It's like, it's a lot easier to like somebody who's always sweet than somebody who's like me. So, a person who is more bold or more, you can say, well, but she did it. But, somebody's always smiling and nice and helpful. It's hard to think they would do something wrong. It just, and that's the game. That's the game they play. So you're absolutely correct. So the red flags were probably repeatedly overlooked or minimized. Minimizing is the proper word. Minimizing by saying, well, it wasn't that big a deal, or it wasn't that bad, or I'm sure there was some reason. This is also good. Very good, Taylor. All that did was reinforce her entitlement. And not only her entitlement, it reinforced that she can get away with it. Now, mind you, she didn't always get away with it because she wasn't very good at it. That's the one thing she seemed to lack. Sometimes, for example, a person who is trying to get away with something, and they're trying to figure out, because they're psychopaths, how they should behave. So like, hi, I'd like to date you, and do you want to get married? And the woman goes, okay, that doesn't work. And somebody says, well, you shouldn't ask her to get married on the first day that you ask her to date. Oh, okay. So now you've learned that doesn't work. So now you go, hey, I'd like to date you. And then the question is, what next? And so eventually what happens is, by practicing different things, you find out what works and what doesn't. Like normal people. I mean, normal people do that as well. They learn from their mistakes. Well, when you lie and manipulate, you start understanding not only, just the things you do are better or worse. Like if I'm inviting somebody out for dinner, if I'm going to invite somebody for a date, where would be an appropriate place to take somebody for dinner? One guy asked me if I wanted to go out on a date, and I said, okay. And he said, well, what kind of food do you like? He said, do you like Italian? And I said, yes. And then he wanted to take me to Olive Garden. And I'm like, that was kind of our last date. I mean, sorry guys, but Olive Garden is not Italian food. That's garbage food. I mean, it's cheap and people love it. I don't know. I don't understand it. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, I love Olive Garden. Oversalted, bad food. It's not Italian food. It's not. I know Italian food. I've been to New York. I've been to Italy. But for him, took me to Olive Garden. Is he a bad guy? No. Did I go out with him again? No. So, so maybe he learned, well, I don't know why she didn't like Olive Garden. His friend goes, you took her to Olive Garden? Man, you should have taken her to a real Italian restaurant. Oh. And then next time, the next girl he takes out to a nice Italian restaurant, they get married. So, I could have lost a nice guy. But he learned. But that's different from manipulating, lying and saying, hey, I'm going to lie and see if that works. And if that lie works, or that manipulation works, I'm going to keep lying and manipulating. And that was her. And so you begin to believe you can get away with these things because you do. And only thing with her is that she kept doing it so much and so poorly, she eventually got caught. So she really was not very good at what she did. It's really kind of odd, because she seems to be a very smart person, but she also just seemed to overplay her game all the time. Maybe because she was so arrogant that she never, no matter what happened in the past, she never learned from it and continued to make the same mistakes. So let's see. I don't like to get into politics. I wonder if it was reversed and Jane had butchered Brittany, if race would have been brought up. I don't want to get into politics. People go into that all the time, whether that race has something to do with it, and whether it would have been looked at differently. And let me say this: in every country, there are issues between different groups of people, whether it be racial, whether it be religious, whether it be cultural, that in a courtroom, the prosecution defense can play things one way or the other. Again, why I'm against civilian juries, because a jury of your peers, what does that mean, right? In this particular case, I think the police were very careful not to accuse her of being possibly involved. And part of that was probably racial. And some of the issues back in 2011 too, when you're trying to fire somebody, a person who can bring a charge of racism to the Equal Opportunity Commission and say that was fired due to race. So sometimes places they are more cautious when they think they might be accused of racism than they won't be accused of racism. So that does become an issue. And sometimes the place is a racial issue, and sometimes it isn't. And it's hard to know the difference, but and we from the outside often will not know. My ex-husband, who was Black, he worked for a company, and he did file an EEOC charge against him for racism, and he was correct. People are getting promoted from outside the company with less skills and less education than he had, and he'd been working in the company in that position. And then just bring a guy in who was white, and so after a while, it's like, wait a minute, this keeps happening. It's ridiculous. And the white managers were trying to hire him, and they were then whoever's above them kept chopping them off and bringing in somebody else. They finally said, you got to file some charges, and he did. And he was then he got his job in the company, and he stayed with the company. He had to take a lesser pay. He got kind of screwed, but he got his job, and he stayed with that company for 20 years, and did fine in the company. I mean, most of the people in the company were fine. It was just there were a couple of people in management which had their issues, But another time, I worked for Blitz, and I was teaching English to different dignitaries and other people who came into the Blitz program, and I received an accommodation. So they have this trial period, and then you work for them after that, and you get a raise and all that. Well, I finished the trial period, and I got these accommodations, and then I got fired. And I'm like, what the heck? I've got accommodations. And it had happened a day after my husband had shown up, and I thought, well, this is a racist thing. It turned out when I filed charges, they came back and said, look, it wasn't racist. It says, this Berlitz was known. What they would do is pay you very little, because what they had you do to teach English was so basic that anybody off the street could do it. And they put you in this training period. And then as soon as you finish this, they just boot you and pull somebody else in so they wouldn't have to give you the raise. They said they just suck as an employer. They're rotten people as an employer. But it wasn't racist. It's like, all right. And it wasn't, so it was just a coincidence. So it's very hard to know these things. So I try not to jump to conclusions on anything of how it plays out and all this kind of stuff. And it's, if we don't need to go there. In this particular instance, there was no need to go there was no racial issue here. I don't believe she killed her because she was a different race. I don't even believe that was an issue between the two of them at all. She was going to rat her out. That was it. And she would have, if she had been Black, she would have killed her too. It wouldn't have made any damn difference. So, because she was just a psychopath, and psychopaths aren't necessarily racist. They just kill anybody. Oh, that's nice. I just accused somebody of hacking 500 out of my account, and they didn't. Felt awful. It's really tricky, very, very tricky issue. Because sometimes things actually happen, and then you just, trying to figure out who did it. It's tough. It really is tough. Sarah says, in my 20s, and Sarah is Alex, just for you guys who wonder why I can't read, I accused everyone of stealing the pens I wrote with. They were a hot commodity in the psych hospital. Well, pens are very useful for stabbing people in the eyes, aren't they? I mean, not so much for writing, but Pat is very judgy. I've been accused of that a lot. Lord. Let's see. Interesting. You asked that question. I forget what other coworkers of theirs commented on the dynamic. They said everything was fine. They said they were fine together. They actually worked together really super well. I don't think there was any animosity between them that I learned of, except for I believe that she probably harbored a level of jealousy because she was always succeeding at what she did and she kept blowing it. And it's hard to see somebody who's almost your mirror image in many ways, except that you've got the lousy mirror image and they're the perfect mirror image and you're the shattered mirror image. I think that can be very frustrating when you look at them and go, well, here I am trying to do the same type of things they're trying to do, but they keep succeeding. And everybody's like, oh, aren't you wonderful? And I'm like struggling along here. So she could have been very jealous and envious of her. But I don't think that was the number one reason. As I've pointed out many times, my number one statement for psychopaths is you're either useful or you're in the way. As long as she was useful, she would probably get along just fine with her. Maybe, let's say she said, hey, I have a place to live that's really this gorgeous place in Adams Morgan. And, you can live there right in the thick of this cool area and it'll just cost you $500 a month because I don't know, I need to rent a room and you can have for $500. She'd be like, oh my God, you're my best friend. Let's say she had great clothes and she said they could share them. She'd probably be her best friend. And then maybe some of her stuff would disappear, but she'd never suspect her. So as long as she's useful, she's fine. But unfortunately for poor Jana, she became in the way. And in the way meant she was going to turn her in and she was probably not going to get the new job because she would have, maybe this time Lululemon would tell the new people, hey, she's a thief. She wouldn't be able to explain what happened. It's so sad for Jana because there's nothing like doing all the right things and getting killed by somebody who does all the wrong things. It's just unbelievable. That really sucks. And you teach your kids to do all the right things and you think they're going to be fine because they do. The family was very, very proud of her. And she it's horrible, really horrible. And that's the question. We don't know exactly exactly how much she knew at that time. But I believe that she knew she was going to turn her in regardless by the morning. And therefore, if she could stop, not only was she going to stop what she was going to do, but again, she was going to become a victim. So even if they already knew that she had stolen, are they going to say to this girl who's been through this horrific experience and been attacked and raped and victimized, are they going to say, oh, and by the way, you stole some yoga pants? Are they even going to go there? They're not going to say one negative word about her. She would wipe the slate clean because she would be now the victim. And she would get her new job. Nobody would ever say anything negative against her. And she who knows, she would get her, more attention in the media. If she had gotten away with it, she'd probably be doing really well today. And people would say, well, would she kill again? Well, probably not. It's just what I call a situational killing. She's not killing for the pleasure of killing like a serial killer. She's like a family annihilator. The family annihilator, somebody pointed out, just wants to wipe the slate clean and start over. They're just rebooting and get rid of this annoying family. I enjoyed them for a while, but now they're just a pain in the butt. And I want to go out and be a free person. I want to party and I want to have new girlfriends or whatever. I'm just going to wipe the slate clean, reboot, and I will start a new life. She's like a family annihilator, except she was just the one. She annihilated her so she could reboot. And so she wouldn't necessarily do it again unless 10 years goes by and another need comes up to reboot. Drew Peterson rebooted more than once, And so yes, there are people who would do it twice now, but it's not a serial killer. It's just rebooting. So, and most of the time, because it's so difficult. The actual act is so difficult. Serial homicide is a little easier in the sense that if you can just sneak around in the dark and just jump out of the bushes and rape and strangle somebody and not get caught, you just go home and eat a pizza. But this case, it blows up in the newspapers and she's already a known person. If you kill off your family and you get away with it, it's still a lot of work. So you're already a known person. So you have to be careful what you do again, because people already know what you are capable of or think you are. Even if you got away with it, they'd say, well, yeah, if lightning strikes twice, we might think that maybe she did kill that lady back there, so probably not. Yeah, a lot of people have good families, and they just, unfortunately, the one person in the family that's that person. Now, does that mean there aren't issues? I mean, every family has issues. I just said some of mine. I had good parents. I had nothing ever horrible happened to me growing up. So no, I can't write. Well, I could write the book on how I was sexually assaulted by my relatives or abused, but none of that happened. So I won't write that book, even though if everybody's dead, they can't say it's not true, right? I could make money, but I'm not going to do that. I will state right here and now, my parents were good people, but they were parents, and they came together with their own set of their own lives and the way they were going to live their life. And then you have a bunch of kids, and some of those kids seem to fit right into the type of life you have, and some don't. I was the odd man out in my family, and everybody knew it. I was different. I looked for I remember looking for for evidence I was adopted, just because I thought I was so different, and turned out I wasn't. But it just, and being adopted doesn't make you that different necessarily either. But it's a child thinking, and but I was different. Personality-wise, interest-wise. And that gave me trouble in my family, not because my parents were bad or my sisters were bad, just because I was different. Now, luckily, at least I don't think I'm a psychopath. But anyway, but so depending on your own personality and other issues, the family can be a relatively decent family, and they're not perfect, but whatever reasons, that little child does not grow up well and grows up to have some kind of personality disorder, and the family may not know what to do with it. And they may try to fix it over and over again and just never can figure out what to do about it, because that's the way they are. I talked about it was just the last hangout about the girl who, what's her? I forgot her name now. You might be able to remember her name. The one who stabbed her mother like 80 times or whatever in the bathroom. And she got convicted, but the question is, she started exhibiting some behaviors really early on that they were having problems with her. Now, did her mother and her stepfather cause those problems, or was she just that way and they didn't know what to do with her? And everybody's going to go back and try to. Thank you, Isabella Guzman. Correct, Rocco. We can go back and try to, analyze it, but we're never really going to know because we weren't in the house. And it could be that they did things that weren't good to her. On the other hand, they could have done nothing to her, and they just don't know why she turned out that way. But so. I think they were being nice to each other. Never heard of any. They said there were no conflicts between the two of them. I think that she did suspect her of being a thief and didn't like that. But the fact that it's very unfortunate that she returned. And people say, well, why the heck did she return to the store that night? Why didn't she just not do that? Should she be alive today? Well, I'm going to say she probably had no inkling that she would get killed by her. They were just in the store together. She could have killed her then, but she didn't, because she hadn't thought of it yet. So they were locking up. She had an opportunity and nothing happened. They both leave. And the last thing you think is, this girl, okay, she might have stolen something. Yeah, she shoplifted a pair of yoga pants, but you don't think she's going to walk back in and she's going to kill you? I mean, I wouldn't have thought that. I mean, there's a lot of people who I know aren't exactly 100% honorable human beings. I don't think they're going to kill me. So, I see no reason why she shouldn't have gone back and tried to, help her get her wallet. I mean, she was being nice to her in spite of the fact she knew she was a bit of a criminal. But she was like, yeah, okay, no, we'll deal with her tomorrow, and they'll figure out, that she's gonna have to learn one day she can't steal stuff. But that's probably all she thought, and she wouldn't have thought more, and I wouldn't have thought more. So I always think it's funny. People say, "Oh, she shouldn't have gone back." Well, um, Now, who is saying that? Wait a minute, I gotta look at. You can buy hot sauce at 7-Eleven, but it's garbage. You gotta buy Matuk's hot sauce from the Trinidadian and Jamaican grocery store. That's my number one hot sauce. I stand by it. Matuk's, Matouks, best hot sauce in the world. Been eating it for 40 years. I buy it off of Amazon. Bottles like for $12 a bottle, and I just store them, and I like a bottle a week. I like things spicy. Oh, now you too? Oh my God, you too. I'm liking it a lot there, Michaela. Hot sauce and cereal. See? Yeah. Get Matuk's. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I know it's really important. I am not best in the world. Matuk's West Indian hot sauce. It is absolutely wonderful flavor. It's very, very hot, but it has actual flavors, not just icky tasting. It is delicious. And I do not work for Matuk's, but yes, I've been having this ever since I went to Jamaica in my 20s. I went to Jamaica. So it's been 40 years. I found this after I went to Jamaica. It's actually Trinidadian, but awesome stuff. Just awesome. Matuk's. I would pimp for them if I could. See, besides crime, I like to add something useful into your life. So that's Matuk's. So my product placement, yeah. Now I have not yet had any product placement, as you notice. I get, now that I've hit 50,000, I get notifications twice a day to represent companies, but it's all this junky stuff. I'm like, I'm not representing that crap on my show. I will only ever represent something I actually truly believe is something worthwhile. And it has to relate to crime. So I can't think of one thing that I would represent. Well, maybe Sunbasket. Sunbasket I love that delivery service. So I get the 3 bags, and each one has 2 meals worth of grocery food in it, and it's they just have the best flavors. And so I take it out and I get to make it fresh, and it's just really, they have all kinds, like Indonesian and then Indian and then something from Spain and something from all the different countries in the world, but they have great recipes, just some fabulous recipes, overpriced but really good, and I don't have to go shopping as much. And I hate shopping, and I don't want to have to figure out what I want to cook. So I just go through the list and I go, oh, I want that one, and I want that one, and I want that one. And then it just shows up at my house, and I still do the cooking, but the food, they have such good sauces and flavorings. It's like, just great recipes. I don't know who that chef is, but he's really good. I've tried other ones, and the food doesn't throw me. But I would represent Sunbasket. So Sunbasket, if you're hearing this, give me free food and I'll represent you. That's a kitty litter sponsorship. I have a cat door. I am not an indoor cat person. I do not want to deal with litter, kitty litter, and all that crap. I have a cat door, and every cat I've had for the last 40 years has always gone in and out that cat door, including the new cat that I don't own. Yeah. So, wine club. I might do the wine club if it's really good wine. Yeah. Yeah, isn't this the truth? Well, the problem I have is that you have to figure. I'm not a person that has one cuisine. Like my Jamaican relatives, they're Jamaicans, and they cook Jamaican food, and so all my sisters-in-law stuff grew up learning how to cook, curry goat and whatever, cow foot and all the different things that they cook, rice and peas, and they have a specific type of food. So they go to the regular store and they have all the food they can buy, and they drop by the Jamaican grocery and they pick up the things they need. For me, okay, I want to make a Mexican meal. Now I want to make an Indian meal. Now I want to make an Italian meal. And then I can't find any of the ingredients. And then I have to go and look for recipes. What am I going to make? What am I going to make? It takes so freaking long to find the recipe and then find the food. And then You go to the store and they don't have this one or two things you need. And you got to go to another store. I just hate it. But some baskets I just go, Indonesian? That one sounds tasty. Ooh, look at that. What is that one? That's Szechuan. Okay, I'm going to try a Szechuan dish. This one's from Colombia. Okay. And then it just shows up. That's great. And I'm being single and living alone too. I don't have all the extra food. And a lot of times they have like a sauce they have specific for that meal. Otherwise, I'd have to buy a big, huge sauce thing and I'd have that sitting around forever. So, yeah. But I do like the cooking part of it. I don't like pre-cooked food. It all tastes like gunk to me. So I don't want that. I want something I can make fresh. So I don't know where that went to in this story, but anyway, if you stay around long enough on my shows, we go into discussions that have absolutely nothing to do. Well, Julia, you're only 2 hours late, which, so, oh, you're a Costco person. The free samples at Costco. Pat is a cat thief. I may be. I don't know if it's a stray. I think it is. I don't know. He's getting closer to my bed though. He's inching. He comes into my bedroom to eat at night, and I keep moving the bowl. So I'm trying to get him to the point where he might actually let me pet him. But so far, if I go like this, he's gone. So I can't move too fast. So. Yes, I do. I do lure it into the bedroom. Yes. So I just want to see if he'll ever be nice to me. But he has the cat door, so I'm not closing him in, and keeping him for myself. So but he seems hungry when he comes. So he's either a very greedy cat or he really is a stray, and he just really wants the food. So, but anyway. That's it. That's why I wanted to talk about this case. I think it was fascinating because, first of all, that right up front, I said, I just don't believe the story. And I'm lucky they let me back on TV. After I said, I think she did it. And they're like, don't say that, Pat. I'm like, but I think she did. So, but they let me back on, and I was right. So, a lot of times when, people like me will not say things like that, they won't take that chance because it's in forever on the internet, and then you look like an idiot if you're wrong, and you get accused of how dare you, how could you say that, people get really upset with you, not just because you say, due to my opinion I think it looks like this, and okay, I'm sorry I was wrong. People really get really angry. So most people who do commentary will beat around the bush. But I thought that was really interesting, and I thought the police investigation was excellent and really, really good job. So look at the snapped one, which I actually do like. If you want to see the whole investigation, how it went down, and see her doing, when it's just really well done, and you get to see how they figured it out. They really went out of their way to do all the analysis and everything. I was really impressed by the police work, and I'm glad the jury came back with first degree. They didn't fall for she just lost it, and snapped, which she did not snap. So I'm really pleased that the jury, I'm surprised the jury didn't. I think maybe because of the 300 plus wounds to her body was just too much for them. I think that's probably what did it. She might have been smarter if she hadn't damaged her quite as much before she killed her. But I think it seems so horrific, and that they just couldn't, just let it out in a few years, Although the family's saying, well, she just had one bad night, so why can't she go back into society? Because she's still a psychopath. And she deserves to be there because she doesn't have a life. She was brutally tortured, and what she did to her was so horrific that I'm sorry. I got zero sympathy for Brittany. She is where she belongs. And so, yeah, and then again, I think this was not psychotic rage. I love that whole statement about how psychopaths don't necessarily do things in a rage. They actually do things very cold-bloodedly, and I believe that's what she did. She's very cold-blooded about it. And so there was no snapping. There was no, I lost it. There was 100%, I wanted to kill her because it served my purpose, because it got me out of a fix and would get me victimhood. And then I could reboot my life and everything would be great. She's just collateral damage. Oh, well, she exhibits psychopathy. So that's my whole statement on that. So anyway, thank you for being here, and I hope you come to the hangout this week, which I forgot which week I'm on, the 3 o'clock in the afternoon or the 7 o'clock. I can't remember. I go back and forth between the two, so more people can come to at least half of them due to time zone issues. And but yes, come to that during the week. And if there's something you really wanted me to do for a case, do put it back in again over and over. You have to remind me just if it's something I've put on the list but haven't gotten to yet. And so, aren't you nice, Sarah? I appreciate that. That's what I try to do. Well, I think the detectives did really good detective work, but they say that little obvious thing in the beginning to me was just like, this doesn't look like a robbery. So anyway, you're still perplexed. Why? No, I don't know why you're still perplexed. She doesn't have to exhibit violence in her past to commit a violent act. That it isn't necessary. Most family annihilators haven't committed a violent act either. They, a matter of fact, they're like, well, he used to take his kids to baseball practice. He used to be the scout leader. He used to, no, I think Jeffrey McDonald bought his little girl a pony. Nobody saw violence. And then because he rebooted, that's what she did. She'd had no reason to commit violence before. She was getting what she needed by stealing and manipulating and lying and sugardaddy.com. But at this point in time, she needed to reboot, and violence was the only way to accomplish it. So she wasn't violent per se. Violence is a tool sometimes of getting what you want. So that's it. You don't have to have a history of it, but that's what people think. And that's why they say, well, it couldn't be her because otherwise she would have a history. And that's what confuses people because they think, well, she's a sweet girl. Okay, she's a little thiefy, but she's not violent. Therefore, doesn't work that way. Let's say, look at most family annihilators. You will find there's no violence in their past at all. It's fascinating. But in that moment, they take care of business, shall we say. So, so anyway, yes, I'm going to go. I don't have Sunbasket. I forgot to order it this week, so I got to go make myself something myself. I'm making cauliflower tacos. That's what I'm making for dinner. And I went out and bought the stupid ingredients myself. So that was too much work. But so I will see you soon for the hangout this week. And again, if you're new to the channel and are still here and you learned about Matuk's hot sauce and other things that have no relation to crime, do subscribe to the channel and join Patreon below if you'd like to be in the chat room with all these wonderful people. So see you soon, guys. Bye.